hope that in this, that they will each take 5 minutes to respond to Stefan and to put out their better idea, and then we'll open it up to you for the hour. And I think that there might be some interesting conversation amongst the panelists, I think, as well. And just because we're taping it, we would love you to come here to the podium just for your opening remarks, if you would mind it.
Thank you very much. That was a great crash course in all the different options for reform. I want to start by thanking Carolyn and her staff for organizing this event. It's rare. Most politicians don't want to change the system that got them into office. So I really want to say this is amazing, and thank you very much. And let's just give her a round of applause. So my name's Dave, and I do a lot of issue-based advocacy around issues like public space, bike lanes, environment, renewable energy, etc., etc. But I've kind of been shifting my focus away from those issues and towards looking at systemic change and how the voting system works, because there's no point in doing successful advocacy that's issue-based if the voting system doesn't give us what we ask for. So you could try and convince the rest of the country to vote against a party that doesn't care about gun control. You can win that. Most of the country can vote against that party, and then the party that most people didn't want can win anyways and eliminate the gun registry. Which makes you wonder, why don't we waste our time trying to convince people that the gun registry is good? And you can do that on any issue you want. Public advocacy and social activism and all those things are all about shifting the goalposts, shifting public opinion to try and impact later who gets elected and how politicians act. That has no context in a system where the people we vote for aren't the people who actually win, when we have governments that most people don't want. Most Ontarians resoundingly rejected the common sense revolution with Mike Harris twice. Most Canadians rejected the Harper platform, yet we have them both. Many people voted for the Greens, and as Stefan mentioned, regionally you've got areas where parties, Liberals or Conservatives or NDP or the Greens are shut out completely. It's insane. I would argue, Stefan was saying, he's not one of the people who says that our system has no merit. Well, I am one of those people. I don't think we live in a democracy. Look at the definition of democracy, we don't need it. Having the right to check ballot does not make a democracy. There has to be a reflection of what we check actually comes back to us. Hey, you can vote in Cuba, you can vote in China, you can vote in lots of places where we don't necessarily consider it a democracy. The results of our election are random. There should be no randomness in democracy. So, how do we move forward? I like to be an optimistic person, that's why I'm here, not because I'm just complaining about how our system is terrible. I believe we can move forward. I believe there's lots of options on the table. How do we do that? So let's just go through the 3 levels quickly. Federally, well, we have a majority government now, a fake majority, but a majority nonetheless. Nothing's likely to happen in the next 3 years. I think that's a pretty safe bet when it comes to voting reform. And despite the great efforts of Carolyn and Stefan, I hate to say it, the big parties as a whole have never really been the ones to push this issue. We did see a motion at the last Liberal convention for the ranked ballot in single-member districts. It's something small, it's nice to see something happening. But the push for PR is always going to come from below. It's going to happen in a strange circumstance, probably at some point if Elizabeth May has 1 seat and holds the balance of power, she'll force one of the large parties to do it. I've been an NDPer, I've been a Liberal, I've been parts of a lot of parties. I don't trust that the change is ever going to come from them. Although if all the MPs were like you two, maybe it would. But they're not. Okay, so I don't feel a lot of optimism right now about what can happen federally in the next few years or even in the next decade. Although I appreciate that the debate is starting, and as Stefan clearly laid out, there's a lot of directions to go. Now we need to start raising the vocabulary in the public and amongst ourselves of what is MMP, what is STB, what is AV, all these things. Provincially, again, I don't think anything's about to happen provincially. We've had a referendum here in Ontario. We've had 2 in BC. I was on staff in the BC referendum on the Yes campaign. I was there for 6 weeks as the director of field organization. It was a tough campaign. We lost really bad. I was in the Speaker's Bureau here in involved with that. Larry Gordon was the executive director then, who ran a great campaign. We lost bad. PI had a referendum, and they lost bad. It's inevitable. These changes will happen. We will have PR, I think, both provincially and federally. And to be clear, we should be aiming for proportional representation. In one of the various hybrid models, I've never quite heard the one that you suggested, which kind of combines MNP and STV, sort of. Yeah, but you've got an interesting twist on it. It's inevitable. We need to keep pushing for it, but the next big change won't be provincial or federal. I think, like with many issues, you start local. We can reform our local voting systems and then move that up for lots of reasons. Local councillors are much more independent, and you can lobby them one at a time. You don't have that party structure which stagnates and doesn't believe in change. You can see very strange votes happen on council, which we've seen in the last few weeks. So I think we should be focusing our energies there. I ran a project 2 years ago called Better Ballots, which looked at 14 options for voting reform in Toronto. There's information back there. The one that I'm most excited about isn't proportional, because I don't think proportional representation has any applicable context in a city of this size without parties. Technically, proportional representation is the best model at any level. But in my opinion, those who advocate for PR municipally remind me of how Rob Ford advocates for subways. It's a great idea. Yes, subways are better. There's no practical way to actually implement it in the current context. In fact, if there was a referendum on proportional representation in Toronto, I would join the no side. There's just no way to do it well that would actually give the benefits that PR does in a party context in a city this size. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with an amazing opportunity. It's called instant runoff voting. Runoff voting is a system that all the parties use to choose their leader. Worked very well for Stefan. It's worked well for lots of others. It's used in every American city that I'm aware of. They use runoff voting for the mayors and the councilors, either in the primary or in the council. It's used by the Academy Awards. It's used by nonprofits to choose the chairs of their boards. It's used by pretty much everyone, except for Canadian cities. So, what does it do? Am I okay being 2 more minutes? Stefan mentioned some of the advantages of it. Runoff voting in Toronto, the thing that really excites me about it is it will really open up the process. Because we see statistically how vote splitting and strategic voting messes up the system. What we don't see is how many people are pushed out of races before the race even starts because of a fear of vote splitting. So if me and Stefan are running against each other for mayor, and Carolyn wants to run for mayor, chances are someone on our team is going to say, Carolyn, you really should run, because you're going to split the glasses vote over there. or you know, if there's something in common with us, you're going to split that vote. It's often men who go in first, who have better connections, who are the sons of a former politician, who have the funding access, and it's often young people, women, and visible minorities who are told not to run. And we can never measure that, because we never even see their names on the ballot. Then even if they have the guts to go and say, I'm going to run anyways, sometimes they drop out. Rocco Rossi dropped out. He was in 4th place. You don't drop out of a runoff vote in 4th place. Dalton McGuinty came in 4th place when he ran for leader of the provincial Liberals. Sarah Thompson dropped out. She was the only female in the front-running group. Out of 40 people running for mayor, 2 were women. One of them made it to front-runner status, and she dropped out because she didn't want to be seen to be a vote splitter. So we didn't even have a woman to choose at the end. With runoff voting, more people can run, no one drops out, we never vote strategically, it'll open up the doors to having more diversity on the ballot, as Stefan mentioned, more positive campaigning. And in terms of those who support PR, it gets us closer to PR because it introduces a ranked ballot. And if you're ever going to have STV, the multi-member districts, you need to have a ranked ballot. So what the fair vote groups in the US are doing is advocating for instant runoff voting at the municipal level. Because to try and convince people to have multi-member districts and ranked ballots at the same time is too much. We tried it in BC, and we got our asses kicked. Let's introduce ranked ballots at the local level where PR has no context anyways, and in fact I think it would be a step backwards. Let's bring it into our political culture so people know what it is. That'll help us get to PR provincially and federally. I've launched a campaign called RABBIT, RABIT.ca. It's the Ranked Ballot Initiative of Toronto. I'm asking for your support, and I'll be here to take questions on it later. I'm very optimistic that we can reform our government at all 3 levels in Canada and get more people voting